Let's talk about Rick and Morty, shall we? Now, I really like Rick and Morty. It's one of my favorite shows, actually. Although I find myself getting more and more embarrassed to admit that. The Rick and Morty fan base is obnoxious, to say the least. Whole bunch of lay intellectual fedoras running around thinking that liking this show makes them smarter than other people. Now, like I said, I do like the show. It's a funny, clever little cartoon. I enjoy it. Reminds me a lot of Futurama. In fact, a lot of people have compared it to Futurama both favorably and unfavorably. Now, the show definitely peaked at the end of season 2. I think we're going to see a steady decline in it going forward. But it's still an entertaining show. That said, though, the fedora elements of the fan base are extremely obnoxious. And there's even this copy pasta running around about how brilliant Rick and Morty is, and you normies just don't get it. LOL, there is no God, blah, 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 tips fedora. And I kind of think they miss a lot of the show by focusing too much on that. Yeah, Rick is a nihilist, but I never really thought you were supposed to take your worldview from Rick. I mean, you're not supposed to want to be Rick. Rick doesn't really want to be Rick when you get right down to it. And one of the things I find kind of interesting about the show, and I don't even think the creators did this on purpose, I think it's just a question of truth shines through whether you mean it to or not, is the show really highlights how irrational atheism is. Rick isn't this, there is no God, there is no afterlife, there is no meaning kind of guy because he's so rational. Quite the opposite. Rick needs there to be no God. The Vindicators episode points this out. And even Rick acknowledges that his atheism is toxic. The Toxic Rick episode points this out. Rick simply resents the idea of any higher authority to whom he must be held accountable. So he doesn't want there to be a God. He hates God. He curses God. He's not lay intellectual who just doesn't think there's a God. In fact, Rick knows for a fact that the devil exists, ghosts exist, Poseidon even exists. He knows for a fact there is a spiritual/supernatural dimension to life, and he just simply chooses to ignore it. Rick's brand of atheism, like most brands of atheism, when you come right down to it, is just nothing more than a theological equivalent of fuck you, Dad. The other thing I find interesting about Rick and Morty is that it has inadvertently resulted in a resurgence of popularity for an Adult Swim show from 10 years ago, Xavier Renegade Angel. If you can accuse the Rick and Morty fan base, at least sections of them, of being, oh, I'm so much smarter than everybody else because I watch this show. Well, that's exactly what this new popularity for Xavier is. I'm so much smarter than the Rick and Morty fans because I watch this show. It's really obnoxious. And honestly, Xavier Renegade Angel sucked. Alright, you're only digging it up because you want to counter-signal against Rick and Morty fans. It's that simple. So, my position on Rick and Morty hasn't changed. I think it's a clever, funny show that is still very entertaining. It's seen its peak already, and that's kind of a shame. The creator is an obnoxious idiot.
We have gotten so bad that a third of our country has gotten there. 29% of the people are fucking Nazis.
And I think we also like to be accused of crimes when there's evidence.
Many of the fans are obnoxious idiots.
I tickle Rick! My beloved dum-dum!
Does Grandpa turn himself into a pickle a lot?
But I, for one, refuse to stop me from enjoying a funny cartoon because of that. That's all I got for tonight, folks. Beckloff out.